Why was it that they were so focused on Russiagate when it comes to Trump? Because let's be fair, if you've got a target, I mean, there's a lot to criticize on the bloke. Why is it that they were so focused on Russia?
Well, let's start with how the Democrats lost in 2016. So you have Hillary Clinton, who is the embodiment of this neoliberal warmongering establishment. Hillary Clinton, who supported the war on Iraq, who supported the dirty war in Syria, who supported the destruction of Libya, who supported so-called free trade policies that decimated the U.S. working class. So she comes along and she's the candidate for the Democratic Party. She faces this clown in Trump, a reality TV show host, who is able to convince people, because of his rhetoric on the campaign trail, that he is some kind of working class champion who is going to take on the establishment and drain the swamp. And enough people in enough states were so disgusted by the Clinton-Obama legacy that they were willing to take a chance on this clown, Trump, who was saying things like, I'm going to bring back jobs and bring back our factories. And he also was criticizing the foreign wars that Hillary Clinton had supported. And that worked. And I think there are many people who probably didn't believe Trump, but I think they were so contemptuous of what Clinton represented that they figured, why not go with this guy? He's at least saying the right things. And it worked. So for Democrats, if they want to do honest self-reflection on such a humiliating defeat to this clown, then that means that they have to reflect on their actual positions, which would require them to come up with a genuine anti-establishment alternative to Trump to challenge him on. So instead of Trump's fake populist anti-establishment rhetoric, for Democrats to learn from 2016 and then challenge him, defeat him, they would have to come up with a genuine anti-establishment alternative. But the problem with that is that that would mean undermining their own power and privilege within the failed system that let Trump become president. And they couldn't do that. So they had to come up with a bunch of excuses for their defeat and, in a very classic dynamic, find external enemies to blame. And very early on, that became Russia. So Russia was now at fault for Trump. Russia was the reason that we had Trump, because Russia brainwashed millions of Americans with their sophisticated social media posts and their hacked emails. And moreover, there was even a conspiracy between Trump and Russia. And that is how Trump got to the White House, not because of our failed policies. So I think that at its core explains it. And then you have a convergence of factors in other privileged sectors beyond the Democratic Party leadership. You have a media that gave Trump billions of dollars worth of free airtime. So they also don't want to do some honest self-reflection. And moreover, if your focus is on Russia and you're blaming Russian oligarchs like Oleg Deripaska for Trump, then that means you can avoid scrutiny of American oligarchs, people like Sheldon Adelson and Robert Mercer, and all the other billionaires who preside over a rigged system, frustration with which Trump was able to exploit. So for a media that serves these same powerful interests, blaming this external enemy serves a very useful purpose. And finally, you also have elements of the national security state who also tried to undermine Trump. That's very obvious now with all the false leaks that they put out, falsely suggesting that there was evidence for a Trump-Russia conspiracy. They didn't like Trump, not because they don't like his racism, but because they didn't see him as a suitable steward of the U.S. war machine. He's a buffoon, and he says the wrong things. He's actually honest sometimes when he talks about what the U.S. really does around the world. So, for example, in Syria, when he kept U.S. troops there, he said very openly, we're there to take the oil.
Yeah.
Barack Obama or Joe Biden would never say that. They'll say we're there to confront ISIS or to protect our strategic interests. They wouldn't be so blunt like Trump as to say, yeah, we're there for the oil. So that's not good when you have a president who is being honest and who is pulling the mask off of the empire. And plus, there's another very important factor here. Trump on the campaign trail was successful in criticizing the foreign wars that the national security state survives on, basically. He was criticizing the war in Libya and the dirty war in Syria. And so that's not good when you see that having appeal amongst a large base of people. So ascribing all that to Russian influence was a good way to stigmatize it and a good way to say that this is not how we talk in the US. This is all Russian influence, so it's bad and it has to be taken down. So I think all those factors are what explain why we got 4 years of Russiagate madness.